All right, today we're diving into a collection of documents that lays out one of the most, well, extraordinary claims you'll probably ever hear. We're about to unpack a dossier that's absolutely jam-packed with secret histories, sovereign treaties, and a fortune that is almost impossible to imagine. And the whole thing really revolves around this one man, General Abselon F. Borci Jr. This statement you see here is from a letter dated March 2025. And yes, you heard that right, a date that hasn't even happened yet. And it really sets the stage. He's claiming to be the one and only person with the power to control a massive, historical estate. And according to these documents, he's about to put a huge plan into motion. So, to really wrap our heads around this incredible story, we've got to start with a very specific transaction that these documents claim is happening as we speak. This isn't just about ancient history. It's about a very current, very high-stakes financial move. Okay, so let's get to know the key players in this whole affair. At the very top, you have General Borci, who's presented as the grantor and the heir to this fortune. The assets themselves are being put into something called the NVC Fund Holding Trust, which is managed by a Reverend Frank Ojogwa Acacia. For their big project, they're working with a partner, Broy and Brumbaugh Legacy Corp., and they've even brought in the Central Bank of Nigeria as a verifying authority. And here's that letter I mentioned. In it, General Borci is basically reconfirming that he has the authority to use the estate's financial assets as security. This document is essentially presented as the key that unlocks this entire fortune, but for a very specific reason. So what is that reason? Well, the documents call it Project Africa. The whole point is to use these vast assets as collateral to raise over $100 billion in investment funds. And all that money, they say, is earmarked for huge infrastructure development projects all across Africa, apparently in partnership with the federal government of Nigeria. And that, of course, brings us to the biggest question of all. Just how massive is the fortune we're really talking about here? The numbers laid out in this dossier are, well, they're just staggering. Get this. According to the executive summary inside the dossier, the total value of the cash and gold equities is more than 500 trillion US dollars. Just to put that into perspective for you, the GDP of the entire planet is only about 100 trillion. And what's supposedly backing all this cash? An unbelievable 400,000 metric tons of sovereign gold. That is literally more than double all the gold that has ever been mined in the entire history of humanity. You can see it all laid out right here on this one page. This executive summary gives you the whole claim in a single snapshot. You've got General Borci as the title holder, that mind-boggling valuation, even specific banking codes for a master account, and the whole trustee management structure. So where is all this wealth supposedly sitting? The dossier claims it's not in some dusty, forgotten vault. Nope. It's supposedly spread across some of the biggest and most respected names in global finance. The World Bank in DC, UBS in Switzerland, Barclays, HSBC, and Citibank. Okay, so that's the what. Now for the how. I mean, how on earth could a fortune of this scale even exist, let alone be kept secret for so long? Well, the dossier tries to answer that by laying out a very deep, very complex, and very secret history. And it all begins with the family line. This chart here claims to trace General Borci's ancestry all the way back to a King Honorio Borci, who's listed as an Emperor of Rome. Yep, you heard that right, an Emperor of Rome. This is presented as the sovereign royal foundation for the entire claim. And from that ancient lineage, they build out this whole historical framework, a timeline of secret power. It points to a royal decree from way back in 1861, a critical historical covenant supposedly signed by world leaders in 1950, a Supreme Court decision in 1968 that reinforced it, and then finally the activation phase, which they claim started in 2023. Now stop and look at this for a second. This is probably one of the most, let's just say, ambitious documents in the entire collection. It's presented as an agreement from 1950 that allegedly has the signatures of Harry S. Truman, Dwight Eisenhower, Mao Zedong, and Chiang Kai-shek. The purpose? To put these assets in a trust to back up the Philippine currency and fund global recovery. So you might be wondering, how do they claim these assets are untouchable? Well, the dossier asserts they're protected under something called the International Banking Law of Bailment and covered by global immunity. They claim the fortune is non-taxable, comes from a non-criminal origin, and is totally free from any claims or liens. Okay, so we've seen the transaction, we've seen the insane scale of the treasure, and we've walked through the supposed history. But what's the point of it all? What's the ultimate endgame here, according to these documents? Well, the stated mission is a massive global humanitarian development plan. And as this map from the dossier shows, there's a very special focus called the African Mandate. The goal, in their own words, is to merge the motherland Hacienda Filipina legacy with the divine wealth. And here's how they say it's all structured to make that happen. General Borci, the grantor, deposits the assets into a trust that can't be revoked. That trust is then managed by NVC Fund Bank, with Frank Ojagwa Ekajija acting as the trustee, who gets full power to pledge the assets for these projects. Now, this document right here is supposedly the ignition key for the entire operation. It's a special power of attorney from November 2023. This is what allegedly activated the whole plan, giving Frank Ekijia the power to move the estate's assets out of historical storage and into active utilization. And, to try and seal the deal, the dossier is packed with exhibits just like this one. It's basically a checklist of all of the required banking paperwork, a certificate of entitlement, proof of funds, compliance forms, and all of them are stamped with this big red verified. It's presented as proof that everything is legitimate and ready to go. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, what we have is a story on a scale that is just hard to comprehend. An ancient fortune, they say, is tied to Roman emperors, a secret history of global pacts, and a massive modern humanitarian mission that is supposedly kicking off right now. And all of that leaves us with one final and really crucial question. What is the next chapter in this incredible story?